Welcome to Spiritual Insurgency. I'm Jason Lupo with my co-host today, Just a Guy, Jim Miller.
Hello, hello.
Here's the topic I want to bring up today. Uh, we should question everything.
Okay.
We should question everything. And I think what we're finally seeing, and I've taught for a long time, I tell my students all the time, question everything, right? Like, just because something is even in a textbook, most of these textbooks are 15, 20 years behind the latest research. And so what's in the textbook might not even be the most accurate information when it comes to some of the sciences. Exercise science, to be specific. I mean, I remember going through school, got a degree in exercise science. I have plenty of other degrees as well, but I have a degree in exercise science.
I do not have plenty of other degrees. I mark on my resume some college, and mine was paid for the Marine Corps days because I had to pay the old GI Bill thing. So that's kind of funny, but yeah.
A degree in crayon eating.
Yeah. Like, what are you doing? I don't know. You put them in Play-Doh factories and make small grilled cheese sandwiches and get selected for the colors so I can be fancy like rich people, you know?
Yeah, but it was funny because I was while I was in college, I was coaching as well and coaching at a high level, and I'd attend conferences and things like that. And the information that we were talking about at conferences and that was being presented at conferences was far beyond the understanding that we were given in a textbook. And so it got to the point where I was like, why am I paying for college? I mean, it's so far behind the time. Like, they're teaching stuff that's not even relevant anymore. And I think that's kind of what we've done in the United States.
So a lot of the college books were already a decade or two outdated, more or less, with what was actually happening at the moment.
Yeah, 100%. And so, you look at what's going on right now, and I heard somebody call it boomer theology this last weekend, when we were talking about the Israel issue and Zionism, and they called it boomer theology. And then you start looking through Facebook, and I see all these guys that once were super MAGA conservatives that are now questioning Trump's interaction in this foreign disputes that are going on. And not to get into the foreign disputes on this particular show, we've gotten into it plenty of times this week.
Right.
So if you're interested in that, I mean, you could find the videos on our channel. But just from a baseline perspective, I think it's encouraging that we're seeing that the broader public is starting to question everything, and starting to question the motives, starting to question whether or not it's right, both from an ethical standpoint, a moral standpoint, and from a logistical standpoint, and from our pocketbook standpoint.
Well, yeah, it's good to question things because you don't know. Like, everybody presenting any argument is biased. Okay, so we can take me for instance. I've been a big pusher and a big advocate for what? Getting pedophiles, rapists, sex traffickers away from schools, parks, daycares, trails, away from all the places where children congregate. You know what I mean? I'm honestly even presenting that I'm being personally biased on it. My daughter's a survivor of it. I find it unacceptable. I don't think they should be in society. I am biased upon it, and it is an agenda that I am favorable for having implemented. So you do need to question, why is somebody doing this, or why is somebody presenting this information or this knowledge or something? I don't really agree with the old boomerologist or whatever you just said. What are the face pagers? What's the llama alpaca haircut kids calling it? A boomology?
No. This is from a boomer.
Okay.
The boomer,
a legitimate boomer, or like
no,
a llama haircut?
a legitimate boomer,
Okay.
like a legitimate, in his 60s, late 60s.
Okay.
Talking about the boomer theology of Zionism and the fact that, like, he grew up with this, the media was pushing it, the churches were pushing it, that, like, Christianity and Israel are connected, that Christianity and protecting Israel and looking at Israel as, like, a protected class is boomer theology, is almost what he called it.
Yeah, okay.
What is what he called it?
I got you. So it's basically just to question things and look at things. I just think it's good just looking at it. I mean, who's presenting the idea? Why are they presenting it? Where's the angle? What's the bias? What's the advantage? What's the disadvantage? What's the cause? What's the effect? What brought it to fruition? Why is this an argument right now? Why is this being presented, and by who? I'm from that we pumped our fuel and then paid for it era, okay? So I'm the last of like cars attracting women, or if you're actually like a man, it wasn't like toxic. It was like, oh, cool, you'll protect your family, you'll take a beating for your lady. You're like, yes, I will. Gives them enough time to leave because I can't fight them all. But we used to question things and stuff. I have an instance when I was a kid. I was writing what was I in like the 5th or 6th grade, and I was writing a paper, and we did like solar systems, and we were learning about like atoms and stuff, right? And I was like, oh, the solar system, atoms kind of work like the solar system, blah, blah, blah. And I wrote a thing on it. I got an F on that paper. Then I was looking at some of my kids' school book stuff, and I mean, I'm sure they're outdated because it's public education, but it was talking about how there's similarities with, things rotating around a mass and everything's kind of moving. And I'm like, I got like an F on a paper. I had to redo the whole freaking thing because I wrote about it being like that. And
You could have written a textbook.
I guess it seems like it just some of the stuff it should be questioned and go, why? When did this come up? I know, look at the copyrights of some of these books too, if we're talking about the educational side. But it's a digital era, so really the information even being taught in schools should be pretty instantaneous, up to date. I mean, everybody likes to say follow the science, but the science is always being updated and changing. You're talking about physical fitness and stuff and training and right, all that. That's all. That's group parts.
I really think when you boil this down and you get to the bottom of it, what we're really talking about is this blind belief systems that we have.
Yeah.
Right. We have these blind beliefs that we were raised with, or that the media purported, or that, we were told by our parents, that we were told by our educators, that we were told by our pastors or preachers or whatever. This blind faith that whatever was told to us is accurate or is true or is the way that the world should work. And when we don't question that, we end up finding ourselves in times that are unsettling, and we will continue in those times that are unsettling. But also, from the perspective of, how do you truly understand why you believe something or what you believe? I can tell you that from being involved in so many political debates and debating ballot issues and things like that, you have to be able to almost debate the other side. Like the strongest debates that I've had, it's when I knew that I could actually debate both sides of the argument. Didn't mean that the other side was correct, because they were absolutely
but you
wrong.
see
because
both
the right side.
perspectives and kind of get a grasp on the why that person is so opposed to you. I mean, I know with me personally, it's usually more of a personal experience. It's more semantics. It's more experiences and stuff, because that's just how I run and operate. I'm like right and wrong, pretty core based on things like that, but a lot of stuff like, we get into things like locally. They want another annexation or some crap way to vote on, right? Just local stuff, just as a semantic or personal experience part. I'm like, no. People are like, why would you vote no on it? I was like, we don't take care of what we got. The system doesn't care about it. They don't fund the things. They don't maintain. They don't take care of any of it. What we got? Why add more when we don't take care of what we got? That's just like asking for seconds, not finishing, getting third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and just continue and not even finish what's going on the plate before.
Well, it's like if an attorney is shocked in a courtroom, and it's your attorney, you got some problems, because that means that somebody didn't do enough research, something didn't pop out in discovery. Maybe you're surprised because somebody illegally introduced evidence, but for the most part, you should not be surprised.
Yeah, you shouldn't be surprised in your own attorney.
If I go to a debate, I rarely should be surprised by an argument that my opponent brings up, because I should have already been prepared for that argument. Same with an attorney, and same when we get into these political conversations, we shouldn't be shocked by what anybody says, because we should have a firm enough understanding of where everybody's coming from, so that we actually make a decision.
I don't know. Sometimes
they can back up that decision.
If people blame it on the lizard people or the crab people or something, you're like, what? But
sometimes it makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying though, if someone does that, it's okay to be surprised. If someone's like, look, man, it's the squirrels. Yeah, it's their fault. And you're all, what? No, I just want to know why the water wasn't filtered and cleaned right from the water treatment plant that we just paid another few $1 million to have updated. You can't start blaming the squirrels and the acorns. It's the squirrels and the acorns, bro. You're like, that's okay to be surprised about that kind of.
Yeah, if somebody's bringing up a stupid argument or is just completely oblivious to the world, which a lot of people are, You
Yeah.
can't be
I think it's
prepared for
to teach
stupidity.
the modern era, though, or the more current generations, to be like, look, question things. It opens independent thought. You start questioning things or wondering about things. Some people do come to their own conclusions, or they take the information and build it up and check both ends and stuff. I mean, it's good. It does develop independent thought, and it will make society, the community, the future, the youngers, it will make them sharper and better and smarter. And honestly, we don't want them. We don't want the next. I know I don't want. I don't want the next generation to be like me. I want the next generation to be better.
No, I was really encouraged. When I was fighting Prop 131, the ranked choice voting, I got invited to a debate up at Denver University. Pretty woke liberal college.
Yeah.
But I had some renewed spirit because when I got there, I said, hey, to the guy that was leading this debate, I said, hey, what is this all about? And he invited a ton of news media. It was the most covered debate in the last cycle in Colorado for non-federal issues or non-federal candidates.
Right.
The most covered debate. I think it ended up in like 85 different newspapers and reported on at 85 different sources. They did a great job. And actually, I think that it really helped swing the vote. The people that were in attendance in the audience, I don't believe were very open-minded, but the journalists who wrote about it and published on it, they actually reported on it very well, and I think it actually swung a lot of voters. But anyways, I asked the guy that was hosting the debate, I said, hey, what's this all about? And he said, hey, I did this up in Juneau, Alaska. He goes, my job, what I got hired here to do at DU was to integrate a debate into every single classroom. So every single class, regardless of what it is, has a debate component in it, and he helps the professors coordinate these debates. And it's debates around the campus. And I think that's so powerful for college students and really high school students. I wish everybody would do this. I started doing it in my classroom. We have science debates every year. I was actually doing that before this debate, but to have debate in every classroom so that students really understand what it is they're.
Not only does it help them understand, I think there's another facet to it that you're not addressing. The part where a big key feature of this latest generation of kids, if there's something they don't agree with, it's cursing, yelling, some nonsense, name calling, or they walk off. They walk up. They have no stance and they walk off because they go, oh, I got uncomfortable. And I think the facet that you're missing is that it helps them be like, look, it's all right. I'm not made to be feeling good and happy all the time. I'm uncomfortable in an uncomfortable situation. Why am I uncomfortable about this stance or that or the argument or the debate? Is there something I missed? Is there something new for me to learn? Is there something I can add to it? You know, so it does open more independent thought, and it does build them that natural resilience that, like, I'm accustomed to it because it's like, oh, I could be wrong. I honestly go into a lot of things going, I could be wrong. I could just be mad and angry and wrong right now entirely with everything I'm going about. But they don't have that. They're not used to that gritty, rough, like, you know, you do something wrong, someone's like, yeah, dude, you're fat, you're stupid, you're dumb, this is terrible. Why are you an idiot? And you're like, am I being an idiot? Like it's not bad to question yourself. It's just there's a form and a way of doing it instead of like doubting yourself. It's okay to question the things and bring them to a realization or a more accurate outcome.
Yeah, I just want to see. I want to see a logical debate. I think we do that really well on this show so often. But I mean, you scroll through Facebook and instead of debating what's going on in the world, it's Orange Man.
Yeah,
it's mean tweets.
There's me. I have a lot of hilarity with a lot of things I do because I kind of just roll that way. But you'll find I'm offended. Oh my god, da da da. You're like, what? What do you? I have to protect everybody from you. I was like, from what? And you got to protect everybody from hilarity? Relax. It's a sense of humor. I'm just kind of laughing off a little bit of a thing and just move on. It ain't that big a deal.
Well, and I think it's we can look at comedy and look at comedians and tell which way the culture's heading. So for a short time, there was the cancel culture, and a ton of comedians were kind of shying away from the risque topics or the topics that were.
I think they helped accelerate that by avoiding it.
But actually, now if you look at comedy and you look at what's going on, they're swinging back.
It's not necessarily like Andrew Dice Clay where you're just like, what? That extra bit. But yeah, it's getting back around. I think a pretty good constant, especially after his return, was the Chappelle stuff. It's a pretty good standard. So that's a pretty good thing to kind of watch. You're like, okay. But you got to remember, too, there is a thing about it. They say most people with the best sense of humor are some of the most tragic people in the world. You're like, all right, guys, this. Why? Yeah, it has to be, or he's going to go crazy.
Yeah,
Or she.
Sometimes it's like comedy. I'm one of those people where it's like if the situation's getting a little heated or whatever, I'll throw a joke out there. Like I'll try to lighten the mood. That's like my
Right.
That's my way of dealing with.
You're right. It
these
is the
things.
squirrel people. Blame the
know?
acorns.
But watching the pendulum of the comedy industry swinging back the other way after this cancel culture stuff and wanting to like
that stuff
not
was
talk about
ridiculous.
any of it, like it's swinging back, and it's actually swinging back to the point where I think it's actually probably more aggressive in some facets than it was previously. But it's just interesting to see how that culture shift is going.
I think that is a pretty good barometer of checking what's going on, watching what the comedians are saying or chit-chatting about or anything like that. And that's a pretty decent barometer with society. I watch movies too, sometimes, like movies and TV shows coming out. I was not a big fan of the whole canceling things out because it's like, dude, you can change the station. You can change the channel. You can click on a different thing to watch. You don't need to buy that. You can just like buy something else. You can shop anywhere else. Relax. You can get it online. You don't have to necessarily go there.
I mean, you have hundreds of thousands of hours of YouTube content being uploaded every single week. Like, if you don't like something you're watching, go watch something else.
And on top of it, comment what you don't like about it or you did like. It's okay to look at something and be like, I didn't like this, but I like that. You know, that's all right. That used to be more of a thing because it used to be the old, what was it? Constructive criticism. That's what they used to call it.
Yeah, that's not a thing anymore.
Yeah,
it's we have this all or nothing approach, and that's the problem that I think we have with the Israel-Iran debate, the Israel-Palestine debate. It's this all or nothing approach. Like nobody wants to acknowledge the fact that there's atrocity on both sides or that both sides have overstepped. In fact, I think Trump did an excellent job of looking at the media just this last week and going like, Israel was wrong, Iran was wrong. They're both wrong. They don't know what the F is going on. Like those were the words that he used, even throughout the F-bomb.
Yeah, I know.
I think that might be the first time in the modern presidential history I've heard a president drop the F.
What do you say? We had two countries don't know what the funk they're doing.
Yes, exactly. 100%.
Man, dude, he's getting funky with it. I don't blame him. Sound like he's kind of irritated with nonsense.
But I love the fact that it's not this all or nothing approach. I love the fact that he's looking at it and going like, look.
Well, it never should be because every situation, every standard, every bit of information has a pro and a con to it.
Yeah.
Like I'm big in cars. Look, if you go into like aerodynamics and cooling, there's drag and this and that, and there's all kinds of things. There's a cost and an effect, and then there's a gain and and which one do you want more of? You want more aero, you want more cooling, you want more downforce. You know, you got to look at things, and everything costs a little bit by having a little bit more of this, or it drains from that, and it costs you on that. And there's always, you know, efficiency and horsepower, and there's just a lot of things with a lot of things that there's a pro and a con. There's a yes, is super helpful, and you're like, oh, by getting more of this helpfulness, it cost me on this part with this portion of it. And you got to look at all that because if you don't get it, it's like I like to say, right? There's more than one spoke on a wheel, for crying out loud. You got to look at all of it. And if you just look at it from there's very few topics in the world that are black and white. Look, the black and white topics that you're either for or against it is like rapists, pedophiles, sex traffickers. You know, murderers. You're either for it or you're against it. It's black and white, you know, and there's very few topics that are like that. And most of this other stuff, especially politically and education-wise, there's a lot of spokes on it, pros and cons, things to question, to look at.
I always pull up for my athletes. I always pull up the 50-meter swim from the latest Olympic Games.
Okay.
The 50-meter freestyle. And I look at my athletes and I go, look, I want you to watch. I'll play it for them a couple times, and I'll say, I want you to watch every single swimmer and watch how different each and every one of them swim. You're talking about the 8 best athletes in the world, and none of them have identical techniques because we exist in this world where we want this perfect technique, but at the end of the day, like the technique has to fit the athlete, and there's what's correct in a bubble, when the athlete doesn't exist. I've always said for years, I go, if
Well, there's organic movement. There's physiques that are different, longer legs, bigger torsos, yada, yada, all that. Height, short people, tall people. So it's got to be an organic movement too. You can't just be like, oh, the form is the
and
form.
I've always said from like a
Sports are like that all the time.
from like a training plan perspective on paper, I have created world champion after world champion after world champion. But that's not how it works, because you have an athlete who's balancing other life issues, who's balancing training stress, etc., who still has to recover. I can write the perfect training plan, but if I ignore the fact that an athlete is doing it, it's probably not going to work very well.
Well,
And
I
so
think
have
if you
to
ignore the fact that a human being's doing it, because if you're not mentally on focus with that task, you know, I used to be a catcher in baseball, dude, maybe back when, Little League and all that kind of stuff. I played football in high school and stuff. I did sports. I liked sports. It was fun. I played a lot of middle school basketball too. But if you're not there and present because other things are distracting you, that's the biggest defeatist part, regardless of physical attributes or anything. Or there's also the part where you get so far like, oh, I'm the best. And you're like, and someone catches you slipping up and they just go, oh, yeah? You thought you were the best, so I knew I could beat you. So all right, portion of that too.
Well, this is Spiritual Insurgency. Join us every day, and we'll see you. We'll see you tomorrow. God bless.
You want it better, be better.